The world is different at 3 a.m. It's a secret, silent planet that only the sleepless get to visit. The air is thinner, the shadows are deeper, and every sound is amplified. The hum of the refrigerator is a roaring engine. The creak of the floorboards is a gunshot, and the sound of a baby crying, that sound is the only thing in the entire universe. For the last 3 months, I had become a permanent resident of this planet. My passport was stamped with dark circles under my eyes, my uniform was a milk-stained t-shirt, and on this particular night, I was the sole inhabitant. Me and my daughter, Lily, and her relentless, inconsolable screaming. It wasn't supposed to be like this. When my husband, David, and I were expecting, we were a team. We read all the books together, we built the crib together, we had long, earnest conversations about how we would be true partners in this. "We're in this together," he'd say, holding my hand over my swollen belly. 50-50, always. I believed him. I loved him for it. The shift was subtle, a slow drift rather than a sudden break. It started with small, logical concessions. In the first week, he said, "Honey, you should get some sleep. I have that big presentation tomorrow." So I'd take the night shift. Then it was, "Well, since you're breastfeeding anyway and you're already awake, it makes sense for you to handle the nights, right?" And I'd agree, because it did make sense. His help became something I had to request, not something that was freely offered. He was a great assistant parent. If I wrote down a list, he would do the things on the list. If I asked him to watch her while I showered, he would. But the management, the planning, the worrying, the 24/7 background hum of responsibility, that was my job alone. I was the CEO of our family, and he was a part-time intern who was doing a pretty good job when given a specific task. On this night, the system had broken. Lily was teething. Nothing worked. The rocking, the shushing, the pacing back and forth across the cold wooden floors of our home, it was all useless. Her cries were sharp, piercing, a raw nerve of sound in the crushing silence of the house. I was walking a tightrope of exhaustion and desperation. Every cell in my body screamed for sleep. Every inch of my soul ached with the primal need to soothe my child and the profound failure of not being able to. After what felt like an eternity, I finally got her to quiet down, her tiny body limp with exhaustion in my arms. I sank into the rocking chair in her nursery, afraid to even breathe too loudly, lest I wake the tiny monster of pain that lived in her gums. And that's when I looked across the hall into our bedroom. And I saw him, David, my partner, my 50-50 teammate. He was sleeping soundly, one arm thrown over his head, a soft, rhythmic snore escaping his lips. He was completely, peacefully, and enviably oblivious. He hadn't stirred, not once. He was on a different planet, the planet of the rested. And in that moment, looking at him, I didn't feel the wave of love and affection I usually did. I felt nothing, a cold, hollow, and terrifying void. And then another feeling crept in, a bitter, hot resentment that coiled in my stomach. As I sat there in the dark, a silent movie started playing in my head. It was a highlight reel of David's day. I saw him waking up refreshed and telling me he was a bit tired before heading off to the gym. I saw him coming home and asking, "So what's for dinner?" I saw him watching his favorite show on Netflix after dinner while I did the laundry, sterilized bottles, and packed the diaper bag for the next day. I saw him kissing me goodnight and saying, "Try to get some sleep tonight," as if it were a choice I was simply refusing to make. He was a good man. He was a good father, in the ways the world measures it. He loved our daughter, but the reality was, his life had barely changed, while mine had been completely obliterated and rebuilt from scratch. He had simply added a new, adorable app to his life. I had become the entire operating system. And sitting there in the blue glow of the baby monitor, I had the terrible realization. It wasn't just that he wasn't helping enough. It wasn't just that we were both tired. It was deeper than that. The terrible realization was this: I was a single mother. I was a single mother with the added soul-crushing labor of watching my partner live the life we were supposed to have left behind together. I was a single mother with a friendly, supportive roommate who occasionally bought groceries and told me I was doing a great job. In the trenches of early parenthood, at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, I was completely and utterly alone. And the man who had promised to be there with me was sleeping soundly, just a few feet away. The realization didn't come with a scream. It came with a chilling, silent clarity. We weren't a team anymore. We were a mother, a baby, and that woman's husband, and I had no idea what to do with that truth. That night, something inside me broke. The naive belief in our 50-50 partnership, the story I had been telling myself, it all shattered. I finally got Lily to sleep in her crib, and I went to our bedroom. I didn't get into bed. I just stood there, looking at David, this man I loved who had somehow become a stranger sharing my bed. I felt a million miles away from him.
The next morning, the tension was a third person at the breakfast table. I was quiet, moving like a zombie, the ghost of 3 a.m. still clinging to me. David was cheerful, rested. "Morning, hun. Rough night?" he asked, completely oblivious. And there it was, the opening. I could have just said, "Yeah, it was tough," and let the resentment simmer. But the woman who had made that terrible realization at 3 a.m. wasn't the same woman from the day before. I took a breath. "David, we need to talk." He looked up, surprised by my tone. "Okay." "I had a realization last night," I began, my voice steady, though my hands were trembling. "I realized that I am, in almost every way that matters, a single mother, and I can't do it anymore." His face went through a series of emotions: confusion, then defensiveness. "What? That's not fair. I help all the time. I changed her diaper yesterday. I gave her a bath on Saturday." And I didn't argue. I didn't list the times he hadn't helped, because I finally understood the problem wasn't about diapers or baths. It's not about the tasks, David. It's about the ownership. It's about the fact that I am the default. I am the one who knows when we're low on wipes. I am the one who schedules the doctor's appointments. I am the one who wakes up when she coughs just to check if she's still breathing. I am the one carrying the entire mental and emotional workload of keeping our child alive and well. And I am doing it alone. I told him about the 3 a.m. realization. I told him about feeling like a ghost in my own life while he was still living his. I didn't yell. I just told him my truth. He was silent for a long time. For the first time, he didn't have a defense. He just listened. And I could see him replaying his own version of the last few months, but this time through my eyes. "I didn't realize, I just didn't see it," he finally said, his voice soft. That conversation wasn't a magic wand. It didn't instantly fix everything, but it was a new beginning. It was the start of us renegotiating our partnership. We started small. He took over 2 nights a week completely, no matter what. He became the CEO of diapers, responsible for knowing our stock and buying more. We started having weekly check-ins about the workload. It was clumsy and imperfect, but for the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't alone in the trenches. The real partnership, the 50-50 we dreamed of, isn't about perfectly divided tasks. It's about equally divided ownership. It's about both people being the default parent. It's about knowing that when you're awake at 3 a.m. with a screaming baby, the person sleeping in the next room is truly sharing the burden with you, even in their dreams. Have you ever felt like a single parent in your relationship? What was the realization that changed things for you? Let's talk about this in the comments. And if this story resonated, I encourage you to watch our story about setting boundaries with family by clicking the video on your screen right now.
We're in this together.